Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine, and today I'm walking you through a real-time watercolor lesson. I'm going to share with you the resources that I'm using for this lesson, as well as the paper and all the materials that we're using. We're also going to have a little bit of the story content that goes along for this lesson. I'm doing this with my 7-year-old daughter, and I think this lesson will be appropriate for grade 2 for like if you're following a Waldorf curriculum, but at the same time I think that it will work for multiple age groups. I'm going to be mostly focusing on my work since I don't really have the mechanism to show both watercolors at the same time, but I will try to show my daughter's work as we're going through the process as best as I can. Okay, so let me get started by showing you some of the resources that I'm using for this particular main lesson. We are going to be doing some watercoloring following the Waldorf way, or the Waldorf method of doing watercoloring, except it's going to be a little bit different because instead of starting with the first lesson, which just introduces either yellow, I think yellow is usually the first color that we start with the watercolors, or with blue, we're going to be doing something that involves all three colors. And that's because my daughter is 7. And while we didn't go through the curriculum exactly by introducing yellow first and then blue and then watch those colors kind of meld together and form new colors. The reason why we're going to start with a different watercolor lesson now is because, as with most homeschooling families, you'll find that a lot of times these lessons have been introduced in some way or another with older children. So since this is not a Waldorf setting, like a school setting where we'd go through these in a proper order, this is just our life. This is our homeschool. Yeah, baby cakes. We are. My daughter's, it is similar to this. My daughter's reminding me that we're going to be doing the Yusuf drawing, Yusuf alayhi salam, and that's because we went through content, the story content for this lesson in this book, Tell Me About the Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, and it's by Good Word Kids, and it's a beautiful book. Really enjoying this book and others by the same publisher and author. So we are going through Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam's story, and the reason why we are kind of not going in order with our prophet stories is because we already covered a lot of the prophet stories in our alphabet main lesson block. And so I'm just kind of backfilling some of the prophet stories that we didn't focus on. And rather than doing them with our crayon drawings, with our chalk drawings and our story kind of following that 2 to 3 day main lesson format, we're just doing something a little bit different. And so we are going to be focusing on this watercolor right here. And this is the dream that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam had when he was a child, and his father interpreted or could understand the significance of the dream because they are prophets. Their dreams have special significance. And so we are going to be doing this one. We're going to do it a little bit differently, but it's basically going to have the sun and the moon and the stars. I think I'm flipping them though. Am I having the sun on the right or the left side? I can't remember.
Is
anyway,
it the dad and sister?
Yes, it represents the mom, the dad, and his 11 siblings, his brothers.
This is 12.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11.
Oh,
Yeah, because they're all bowing down to him. So that is the story content for this lesson, and we're going to kind of do this watercoloring using just basically 3 watercolors. I also want to show you the other book that we're using as a resource guide. This is called Color Dynamics. This is a beautiful book. Even if you decide not to do any watercoloring, I highly recommend this book because it's just so gorgeous. And so this is, again, Waldorf inspired, and you can see beautiful watercoloring examples. And you can also see at the very beginning that it also starts with the basic like starting with just one color. So starting with yellow and then just exploring blue before you start mixing these colors together. We're going to do this a little bit in the watercoloring. I'm going to show you how we're going to go about kind of experiencing each color on its own before we bring in other colors. So for more information on all the resources that we're using, check the description box below. It's packed with information as well as links to the resources that we've used.
Is this mine?
Yes. So let me show you how we're going to prepare the watercoloring. I think I need to prepare the watercolors first though before I prepare the paper. Let me move this for a minute so I don't damage the paper and put this on your side. And let's go ahead and do the watercolors. So these are the, you may mix them, but I will have to put them in.
Is that water?
So we just washed them, so that's water, yes. So we are using the Stockmar watercolors. These are concentrated watercolors. I am debating whether or not to use both blues and both yellows. This is the yellow that we traditionally begin with. I love this golden yellow, but I would prefer just to start with the 3 basic colors for this watercolor. So I'm going to take out the golden yellow.
Thingies, and there's more than 5 pockets, so you can do all the colors.
You're right, we can, but I want us to experience those colors on the paper is why I don't want to use them all. Okay, and you're putting that blue away, and we'll just use,
are you going to put water in them
ultramarine.
And then put the thingy?
We're going to put the thingy in first, the watercolor in first, then we'll add the water. I actually prefer this Prussian blue. No, it's okay. I'm just really debating. I really want to use both blues, but yeah, I think I really want to try using both blues. Okay, and then we have our painting boards here. These are by Waldorf Supplies. These ones we got from Mercurius.com, but I think you can find them at other retailers. And then our paintbrushes, which we took to the beach, so there's sand in them. These ones are natural bristles made out of, I think, squirrel hair.
Squirrel hair?
Yeah. I actually prefer the synthetic brushes, but
squirrel hair?
Let me grab a few more because we're going to need these larger ones. These are size 12, I think.
This one's size...
That one is a flat one. So I think we'll need these ones. Let me pull out a couple more. Because it was just all the supplies that we needed when we went to the beach. And I'll pull out this one as well.
Is this all thingy hair? Does it feel normal on a squirrel? Like it feels like on us when it has hair on it? Does it feel like how we have hair on it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I am not sure. Alright, so let me borrow these ones so that they can be within each of these little areas. So this is really concentrated, so you're not going to need much.
Are we going to do it with our hands or a paintbrush?
How do you mean? Oh no, this is with a paintbrush. Alright.
Here, we have enough. Then you're going to put water in there?
You know what I forgot to do is grab a piece of paper just to see how concentrated I made these. And I think I'm going to have to run and get that unless you want to go into the schoolroom, and this one got dry. Get a watercolor paper, not like the fancy kind, but the one that's behind my desk. The less fancy kind. That one got dry. I do like the colors a little bit stronger, but you can make this last longer by making them less concentrated. Oh, where am I going to put that? Oh my. Alright, and then Prussian blue, which is one of my favorites. And I've got some water here, but that is awfully high. I use this water bottle instead. Oh, that is just the right size, thank you.
Yeah, all right.
But be careful, don't tap that.
That one looks so weird.
Okay.
And then I want to mix them.
You do? How about you start by mixing the blue one?
How does it look so... The blue looks...
Yeah. Go ahead and mix the blue one.
With this?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to move this closer to you.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Okay. Let me move this closer to you. How about we move your paper? Because I don't want to get it on the paper. And... you can go ahead and mix this. Okay,
Look,
go
it
ahead.
looks like a perfect
But just
circle. It looks like a yolk.
But just go ahead and mix just the blue one. Okay.
Blues.
Well, no, you're gonna need a separate paintbrush for each one. So here are some more paintbrushes. And I don't really have a good place to rest the paintbrush, so I'm going to just, oh, it's not mixed in all the way, babe cakes. You gotta mix it in all the way. That one's gonna be the hardest one to mix in because it was really all over the paintbrush. So do the best you can for that. And then I think if you rest it on this, can I see if this is gonna work? Yeah, that's gonna work. Then you can go on to the next one, okay? And I'm gonna show the paper.
What do we do with this paper?
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the paper that we're going to use for today's project. First, I have just a small piece of 90-pound watercolor paper by Fabriano. I really like that brand for like just everyday watercolor paper, but for wet on wet, this is not going to work for wet on wet, but for wet on wet, I highly recommend the Strathmore watercolor paper. This is 140-pound watercolor paper, and I don't know the cotton content, but it is a high enough cotton content that allows for it to be wet on wet and not it's durable enough to hold up to it without tearing. So I'm gonna prepare in two different ways our watercolor for today. I'm going to put this piece of paper aside and show you.
I think I did it.
You did a great job. So I hold on to that for 1 second, and I'm going to show how I'm doing this one first. I'm going to use some of the artist tape to tape down this paper on our painting board. And this is just going to keep it in place, but then this is one way to do it, but I'm going to show you two ways that you can do this. You don't need a painting board to do your wet on wet watercoloring. For years, we just used our granite countertops in the kitchen, and that worked out just fine. But these painting boards are sublime. They're so nice. We use them for more than just watercoloring. So this painter's tape is really great. It's like a really sticky masking tape, but it won't damage your painting board or your paper. But if you use really thin paper that's just not that durable, then you're gonna find that it will tear the paper. I'm also not going from corner to corner. That would give a really nice finished edge. I would prefer not to use painting tape for this particular project, but I do want to show you two different ways to do this. All right.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. So I am just going to...
I don't know how we're going to do that.
Good point. I'm not sure what we're going to do with
We
that
can
either.
move it up there.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let me just move that to right in between us just for a moment. I've got an idea. Got an idea, but you're just going to have to wait 1 second, okay? All right, so I have this set of watercolor painting jars, and what I'm going to do...
And there's exactly 4, and we can try it. I mean, use it. Try.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is put that right in between us, and put them in... Oh my goodness, I've already made a mess.
I can get up to
So I brought one, thank you. And that would probably be a better choice to use those ones. Don't use that one, actually, versus the set that we have, but that's okay. Let me move this right in between us. Let me clean this up, and then we'll get started.
And then we do that, put it there.
Yeah, we'll put this right in the middle. Okay, so the next thing, let me give you this one, and I will take this painting board, and I will also just
We need also a
clean it up.
painting brush.
Yeah, it'll be a second. All right, so the next thing we're going to do,
With the watercolor.
I'll show you. The other way that we're going to prepare, and that piece of paper is actually not all prepared yet. This is just a tub that we picked up from Amazon, and we're going to use it in order to prepare our watercolor paper. This is one method that you can use, where you're just kind of bringing it into the water. You don't want to soak it in for very long either. I've noticed that when I do that, it does start to make the paper a little bit thin and more prone to breakage. So
How do I do that? It's already taped
I
down.
know, you're right. I'm going to show two different
We do it
ways.
this way.
You're correct. So let me go ahead and put this one right here on this painting board. I am not going to tape it down.
Because then it wouldn't stick.
It wouldn't stick, you're right. And
it's already sticking from the water.
okay, so now, do you mind holding this for just 1 second, please, with 2 hands? Let me just move this for a second. It's going to be on the floor, so don't step on it. Okay, so next what we're going to do is...
I want to dab it on this.
Yeah, let me just pick this up so I can show. I'm just going to wet my sponge and squeeze it out.
It's so hard now because it's so wet.
Yeah. Okay, so for this one, 1 second, baby cakes. For this one, we are just going to remove the excess water. So let me just show you what that looks like when there's too much water. You can almost see little pools of water where the light is reflecting on the left side. And you want just a nice wet sheen. So you want it wet, but you don't want it sopping wet. Okay, so the sponge is going to help remove that excess water. Alternatively, I'm going to trade with you again, sweetheart. So I'm going to give you this one. You can hold on to that one. And I'll put this one down here. If you don't want to submerge all your... Oh, did you want to do this? Yeah. Okay. Then yeah. But you're going to need some water. So this isn't all... You can put it in the water and just squeeze it out gently. Alright. Can I... yeah, there's a couple of spots. Do you mind if I do the rest of it? Thanks. So... Oops, let me just add a little bit more water. So we're just going to go through from one end to the other, making sure that, don't worry about the ripples, sweetheart. If you try to push them down, it's going to tear. Okay, so that is now ready, and you might notice that this will dry, depending on the day. It could dry really quickly, and you may need to re-moisten your paper in certain areas, especially since today we're going to work on different spots of the paper at not all at once, basically.
Well, are we going to do the thing where we dab it and then it moves?
No. Okay, so which paper do you want?
This one.
This one. Okay, so let me move this one over and give this one to you, and then we can start. This one got a little bit too wrinkly. It already started to dry. All right, and that's why taping also is a good idea. Okay, so we're going to need a couple more paintbrushes. So
I'll take the almost for.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, we are going to start with the blue in this area. So we have 2 different blues.
I like that blue.
Let me mix it a little bit more because I see that this is quite concentrated. And
why do we need this for? What do we need
I
this
forgot to test them out, so let me test them out.
What do we need this for?
For the watercolor painting. Okay, so that's beautiful.
Have that one.
Yes, but we're 2 people, so we need 2 paintbrushes, and that's a nice color. So let me check this one. That's a little bit light. I would prefer that one. It's a little bit darker, but that's okay.
It looks darker here.
It does. I can add a little bit more because I like them really rich. Oh, that's beautiful. The yellow is just so vibrant. And let me try the yellow. Or the red. Okay, that's really good. Excuse me. So I just want to do the Prussian blue a little bit more. Not much, but a little bit. Okay, so we can begin, and what we're going to do is we're going to start with just a little bit of the blue. Which blue would you like to start with? You would? Okay, go ahead. And we're going to start in this corner in here. I'm just going to draw the paintbrush down and around and kind of work a circle. I can already feel my paint, my
like this?
surf beautiful, just like that. Let me show everyone. Yep, just like that. That's very beautiful. All right, so my paper is quite dry, so I'm going to...
But it's not, my thing is already this color, so if we put like in the yellow, it's gonna make it a color.
Yeah, but we're going to take this one step at a time. So I'm going to continue to do my circle, which you can start from the center out.
I did the opposite.
Yeah. No, it's good that you went from the center out. We can now we can now switch colors if you want, and just go. You didn't change your paintbrush though, sweetheart?
Oh.
That's okay now, but we don't want to mix the colors. So this is the water to clean the paintbrush. I forgot to give that to you. And I also have a paper towel if you need it.
To lift the color?
Yeah. No, to clean your paintbrush if you need it.
And also lift the color.
So the beginning part is to just work with the blue.
Can I have the paper towel?
It's right here.
Oh.
You can clean the paintbrush here, and then you can go into... For the blues, you can kind of go back and forth. Once we get to the other colors,
it's supposed to be really big?
We're going to do about a third of the page right here. And I'm going all the way to the edge, but you can, you'll have your tape there.
What was his stepmom's name?
Raheel, I think, was his... It's not really stepmom, it's the other wife and the other children. So they were half brothers from two different mothers. So yours is looking really beautiful. I'm going to clean off my paintbrush. And at this point we can start lifting some color. You can see how easily that comes out. And I'm going to work around the image with...
Looks like a smiley face.
Well, I do want this to be the moon right in the center. So I do want to remove enough color for it to be the moon. But then I can go ahead and just add other, almost making it look like there's kind of clouds in the sky. And at this point, the more your page dries, the more you'll be able to see the white lift. Alright, so you just don't want to go too much into this space here because we need this for the yellow. And you can already feel the paper getting dry. So I'm going to rehydrate that in a minute. But you can start to lift out the color right in the center. And that will be for the moon. And I will continue doing that for this one. Okay, so I got some fresh water. Wow, this is really... Sweetie, are you adding more blue or are you just lifting color? Okay, because that got really... blue. So I'm going to do the same thing here and continue to lift the color. The only thing is that the paper is still really wet, and so let me move this. Sometimes it's hard to lift the color when it's this wet. So you kind of have to work it a little bit. I would continue to do like variations in clouds and see how it starts to look as you lift some color. But now clouds aren't going to be quite that straight. They may at times, but you want to can you pay attention here for a minute? We can, if you just see let your paintbrush kind of go around in a circle, but kind of gently lift the color as you go. Now, for wet on wet watercoloring, you want to go with a really durable watercolor paper, because other watercolor paper is just not going to hold up to this. You're dragging it too much, sweetheart.
No, I'm trying to.
Yeah, but you're going to ruin your paper because it is very wet. So you want to be gentle. You can already see, like, on the edges here of my paper, it's really, and even right here where I'm working it, it's going to start to tear the paper. So you want to be careful with that. And I'm just going to remove whatever was on there.
I'm going to do the sun.
Not yet, sweetheart, but we can work on, you might have just scratched your paper. I'm gonna work on the moon just a little bit more. Keep bringing in more blue here. Gently, sweetheart, it's a gentle process, so just gently lift the color, because you will ruin your paper, and if you get too close to the metal, you will scratch your paper, and I fear that maybe that's what happened there, is that you might have scratched your paper. Okay, so can't seem to lift much more of this right here, but I will attempt to lift some of the other color around the edges. I'm going to clean my brush really well and then dry it really well as well, and see if your paper is drier, then you'll need to add water in order to lift the color. And if your paper is really wet, you may need to use a drier paintbrush in order to lift the color.
Do you want to tell me some of the story why it will work?
Yeah, so this is the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. His father was Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, and Prophet Yaqub's father was Prophet Ishaq alayhi salam.
Was Prophet Ibrahim.
Very good. And Prophet Ishaq's father was Prophet Ibrahim. So you can see that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam comes from a very noble family. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And even in the most noble of families, you're going to have some problems. And we're going to see some of the problems that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam's family had. Prophet Yaqub was married to a woman, I believe her name was Rahil, and she had 10 sons. And then
he had 2 sons.
I think that was his first wife. Then Prophet, or was Prophet, you know what, let me just double check 1 second. Was Rahil Yusuf alayhi salam's mother? I'm sorry, Rahil is Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam's mother. So he would
have stepbrothers.
No, he would, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam was married to a woman. She had 10 children. Rahil was his other wife, who did not have children for many, many years. Then she had a son named Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf was the 11th son of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam.
Then which one? Then wait, I thought his real dad is Prophet Yaqub.
It is, yeah. And his mom.
Then how do you have half brothers?
Because his dad, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, was married to another woman who had 10 children. So same dad had 12 boys, 2 different moms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Just like Prophet
Ibrahim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, in the dream, Rahil, I believe is the mom's name, she had 2 boys, Yusuf and Benjamin. And Yusuf was older than Benjamin, and Benjamin and Yusuf alayhi salam were very much loved by their father, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. And the other boys, they felt it. They were probably jealous. They felt that their father loved Prophet, or he wasn't a prophet yet, Yaqub, and sorry, Yusuf, and they were not happy about that. And something is going to happen in the story that is
sad.
Yes, it's sad and a little bit traumatic for Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam. So before we go into that, I'm gonna clean these really well and add some new water so that we can start on the yellow on this side, okay? Okay. So I'm gonna move everything over. So that we can hopefully see more of the yellow. Excellent. Okay. So next, we have a couple, you can use the paintbrushes that we already cleaned. This one would also work well. You may choose whichever one you like. I'm gonna work with this one just so I can show the difference. I'm gonna go ahead and get some yellow. And this time I'm just gonna go kind of like in little waves like this. But you know what I noticed is that this paintbrush was not cleaned. Oh my goodness. That one had a little bit of blue in it from the last project that we did. Hopefully, inshallah, that's out completely. Oh yes, I forgot. My paper is quite dry. I'm going to need to rehydrate it a little bit.
Rehydrate it?
Yeah, I need to make it wet again. And you can use the brush. I'm just going to use, I'm sorry, you can use the sponge, but I'm just going to use a spray here. So let me help you with that. Okay, so what we're going to do for the yellow is a little different than the blue. The blue I did more of circular. For the yellow, we're just going to go more like in waves here. And probably should have done it the other way around, but let's work with this now. And the point first is just to work with the color and just experience the color. And you wouldn't be saying this as a teacher. So cover your ears, my darling. You wouldn't be walking your child through the process of verbally of like, oh, you know, experience the color. But you might say like, how does this color make you feel? Careful, baby cakes, you're getting really close to the blue. Let's keep it separate for now. We can bring them together in a little bit, okay? So why don't you tell me?
Is this Raheel or the other one?
Raheel. It's Raheel. Why don't you tell me how the yellow makes you feel?
Okay. Okay. It makes me feel okay.
What else?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Baby cakes, you're getting it in the blue. Please keep it separate from the blue, okay?
How about you tell me how it
How about you try to tell me how it makes you feel first? What's the first thought that comes in your mind when you see all of this yellow on the page?
It looks bright.
It looks bright. Okay. Okay, let's draw the color from one side to the next and not go back and forth because it's not going to be good for the brush to do that, okay?
How do you feel?
Oh, I feel very energetic when I see yellow like this. I really, really like yellow. My room was yellow when I was a child.
My room's green.
Yes, your room is green. And I loved yellow for many, many years. I loved yellow. Then, one year, I had yellow curtains as an adult. And I had furniture that had a yellow hue to it as an adult as well. pine furniture that over the years developed a nice warm yellow tone to it, like a yellow with the wood, not yellow like this, but I had curtains that were yellow. They were from IKEA. They were 2-paneled yellow, just like these colors right here. And they were hanging in our room, and we would have the curtains closed a lot, but the sun would come through them and make the whole room this warm glow, just so beautiful and both invigorating and relaxing at the same time. It's funny that color can do that to you sometimes. And it would make everything kind of have a yellow tint to it, very warming and very cozy, and at the same time, on a bright morning, very lively and very invigorating. And then something happened. I was pregnant with baby number 3, your big brother, and had some really weird reaction to those yellow curtains. Everything yellow. I couldn't stand the yellow. It made me so sick.
What?
Like, it made me really sick to be in that yellow room. Like, I couldn't stand it at all. And one day, I went in and I took down all the curtains.
What'd you put instead?
And nothing was there. And I emptied out all of our furniture that was that pine. I emptied it all out, and I drove all that furniture to Grandma's house. All in one day. I couldn't stand it. It had to be out. It had to be out of that room. And then we painted the room a really soft, very pale lavender. We went from the warm spectrum all the way to the cool spectrum, and it was this beautiful lavender with a touch of blue, just really pale and just really cool and really calm, and it made me feel so good.
What color is lavender?
Purple. So what we're going to do...
What about the curtains? What color were they?
White. I'm going to take the yellow, and we're going to remove some of the yellow. Okay, so I'm going to clean my brush really well, and I'm going to dry my brush, and I'm going to take from the center some color, and then I'm going to dry my paintbrush again and take some more color out of the center. And this is going to be slow work. I'm going to have to clean my paintbrush again. I may need to clean that water as well, and remove the excess water and the paint and draw the color out. You can see that I am taking a lot of that color out, but it doesn't look like much here.
What do I do with the red?
The red will come at the end. So we're going to keep working this. It's going to be a little bit of work, sweetheart, so you're going to have to just keep taking that yellow out. And we could have gone around and not gone over that. We could have just left that area blank to begin with so that we wouldn't have such a tough time getting the yellow out.
This one's harder than the other color.
Yes, it is. So you can
kind of see it.
You can kind of see it? I'm coming right up against the blue here because it's
Can I use blue over there?
You can, yeah. If you're going to change your paintbrushes, sweetheart. Which paintbrush? And we'll need to clean the water too. So let me go clean the water first for you. Oh, you can use this paintbrush. Was this the blue one? Yeah, go ahead and use that one. Let me go wash this.
I don't think so. It was mine. No.
So while I work the color out, actually, before I move on to the yellow again, I want to draw a little bit more of this blue out if possible. I'm not even sure if I can, but if I can, I want to, yeah, go ahead. Oh wait, you know what? Let me give you a new one. It shouldn't matter, and I do really need to get different paper towels for this, but let me do that. While I try to draw a little bit more of this color out, I will continue the story for you. I know you already know it, but I'll tell it to you again. But Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was very much beloved by his father. He really, really loved Yusuf alayhi salam and his brother Benjamin. They were very gentle children, very well-mannered, and Prophet Yaqub really loved both of them a lot, to the point where his other children grew jealous of their father's love for the two boys. Before we talk about the tragedy that befell Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, I'll tell you about the dream.
How do you make it like that?
Oh, yours is always mine, and mine is always yours. It takes a lot of work to get the color out. You can just keep working it, but gently working it. You don't want to go too hard with it, otherwise you'll ruin the paper. You can see as I bring more water into the paper, you can see it reactivate the watercolor. And then you can let it sit for a minute, and then you can draw the color out as the water kind of mixes in again. So let's talk about the dream that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam had, because this dream was very significant, and we know that the dreams of the prophets are a type of revelation or a type of sign that can be interpreted. There's meaning to them. We know that dreams come from three places. They either come from your heart, they come from Shaitan, or they come from Allah. With, for the prophets especially, that's could be revelation, could be news. It's from Allah. The prophets especially aren't going to have dreams from Shaitan.
Was that dream a revelation?
Yes, it was a prophecy, rather. Sorry, not revelation. It was a prophecy. It means something that's going to happen that you don't know. You can't tell the future. But in this case, Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam had a dream that foretold the future. And his dream was that he dreamed that the sun and the moon were bowing down. Oh, sorry, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to him. And that's what we're working on today. The sun and the moon and the 11 stars. And I cannot get my sun. My sun is not coming out. So I'm going to work on my sun a little bit later.
But like, how is this a sun?
A little bit more water was
it's
necessary.
Be a circle.
Yes, the sun in the bright yellow sky. Sometimes skies don't seem blue when you look up on a very clear, very bright day. Sometimes it doesn't seem blue at all. I'm also going to come here now with fresh water and just kind of blend these two bits together here. I don't want it to be really green, but I don't want it to be such a stark difference between these two areas. So kind of blending the color a little bit, but then also lifting it at the same time, just so that there's a nice smooth transition between the two areas. So that is the moon and the sun. We're going to work down here next, and we're going to try to make sort of like a purpley night sky. And what I want to start with, because the sun coming into the night is going to have like an orange hue, and the sky at night with the clouds and the moonlight has a purpley hue to it. So I'm going to take the red, and I would recommend that you take this paintbrush, and I'm going to show it once, and then I'm going to give this to you. You can put this one in the water. I'm going to show you this. We're going to just go over our paper here. But before we do that, can you hold this for a minute? Before we do that, I want to add a bit more water to my paper because it's It started to get a little bit dry. I'm going to do the same to yours as well. And then you can start with your red. And I find that the colors will, or the watercolor will really blend nicely with the water. You can see how it just travels up the water. And it gives like a really nice variegated color without using... I would blend it last. It has a really nice variegated color without using different colors. It's just the red. It's just 3 colors. Actually, there's 4 colors.
These are the primary colors.
Yes, they are. Very nice. So Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam knew immediately that the dream that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam had was very significant and was a prophecy. He knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had something special in store for his son, and at the same time he was also very cautious about leaving his son with his other children, because he had hesitation. I'm going to bring this red right up in here into the yellow and let those colors blend together. And then I'm going to clean my paintbrush and get a little bit more red and bring it right here so that this is coming into the blue. And then I'm going to draw, look at this plum, it's so beautiful. And just kind of bring that down a little bit. I'm going to leave this section right here, trying to not work that section right there. I'm going to let the red kind of come up. What I'm going to do right now... Where? Oh, yes. I'm going to go clean these real quick so that I can...
How do I make it not green?
Yeah, we can take some of the color out. I'm going to tell you more of the story, but I also want to talk a little bit. Okay, so to get that green out, you're going to need to remove the color. So I'm going to let you hold this. Okay, hold this. I'm going to show you how to do that. What you want to do is take like a clean paintbrush, okay, and I'm going to just dry it a little bit. And you can start to lift that color out. Do you see how that came out right there? You see how all that green came out? Okay. Then you're going to wash your paintbrush again. And then you can dab it dry. Then you can do the process again. Okay. But you need to go gentle with it, otherwise you'll ruin the paper. And I'm also going to try to lift some of the color out from here too. That's going to be a little bit challenging to do because the yellow is just really wanting to stick around. It's warm and it likes being on the page.
Now, do you like yellow?
Yes, I started.
That one experiment you hated yellow.
Well, it took me many years to love yellow again. Yeah, that was not really in my control. All right, so let me tell you more about the story. So Prophet Yaqub was concerned for his son and did not want to have him out of his sight. He was very doting father and wanted to be around him all the time, didn't want him alone with his older brothers. He had this gut intuition about the older brothers that they were planning mischief of some kind. That's beautiful. That looks like the sun right there. But I would stop at this point, sweetheart, because your paper may get a little bit damaged. So you can pause for a minute while I tell you the story. We will. We will in a minute. But let me tell you the story while I work on the yellow, because yours is a little bit overworked. And so I'm just going to work here and tell you about Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. So one day, the 10 brothers were hatching a horrible plot against their baby brother. They want to kill him. And that's a horrendous, horrendous thing to do. I mean, horrible, horrible. And we need to remember also that this is the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's, Prophet Alayhi Salam's family. This is the Prophet's family. This is Yaqub, whose father is Ishaq, whose father is Ismail Alayhi Salam. All of the... I'm sorry. Gosh, today is just not working for me. Ibrahim alayhi salam, whose son is Ishaq alayhi salam, whose son is Yaqub alayhi salam, whose children include Yusuf alayhi salam, who is a prophet. So you can see 4 generations of prophets, and yet in Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam's family, you have children who are plotting against their brother. Not something light, not something, oh, we're just going to, beat him up, which is horrendous in itself, but we're plotting to kill him. They want to kill their baby brother out of jealousy. One of the brothers, who was a little bit more soft-hearted or kinder, had just said, don't kill him. Let's just throw him in a well, and travelers and a caravan will come by and take him. And the brothers thought that was a better idea. And so they went to their father and asked their father to take Yusuf out hunting, on a hunting trip the following day. And Prophet Yaqub was very apprehensive and did not want to send his son out on this hunting trip. He felt uneasy about it, but the brothers were so happy and so excited, and they just really convinced their dad that this would be a fun thing for Yusuf alayhi salam, that he would enjoy being out in the country with the brothers, and the brothers would really, really take care of him. And so Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam said, no, what if I don't want to send him in case like a wolf should get him. Like, what if a wolf comes and gets him and devours him? And the brothers said, oh no, father, we would be insulted if a wolf came and got him. There are 10 of us and only 1 wolf. Oh, certainly not. That's just not going to happen. And so Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam consented and allowed his son to go with Benjamin and Yusuf on this hunting trip. Even though he felt uneasy about it, he went against his gut intuition. Now, everything has a plan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a plan in all of these things that happen. And whereas it seems horrendous, and it really is, the idea of losing your child that way is something that it's hard for me to comprehend. But there was wisdom in it that a believer can appreciate. So when hardships happen to believers, it can be a good thing, depending on how you react to it.
Is there more of the story besides?
Yeah, this is a very long story.
Yeah. When all that happened, is there more to the story?
Mm-hmm. So at this point, we can work on the purple down here. And I'm going to take some of the Prussian blue. This one is yours right here. And I've got quite a bit of blue. My paintbrush is really saturated, and I'm just gonna go over. You can see how you can see that blue, and then really quickly it turns into purple. And since there's so much red, you can see it turn more into plum. And you can see how quickly that purple, that blue, just kind of gets absorbed by that red and transformed. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of blue here. So you have quite a bit of blue. So what I would like you to do is not add any more blue, but instead you can take a clean paintbrush and add red over that. So let me show how you're gonna do that. Oh, and I see also, usually you can remove the excess water when you've cleaned your paintbrush. I didn't see you do that. And now you can go ahead and go over it. And now we want to remember to clean our paintbrushes really well. That's beautiful. And I think that you can just keep working that color. But if you get more red, you're going to have to clean your paintbrush extremely well with a lot of water and dry it thoroughly before you use that same paintbrush. But I don't want you adding any more right now, sweetheart. You shouldn't have washed it. So let's try that again.
We'll lift the color.
We're not going to lift the color yet. We're going to get it all one color first. So go ahead and let me dry that out a little bit for you. Go ahead and keep working all of that in there. And I'm going to work on this one here. So when they were out on their hunting trip, the brothers grabbed Yusuf alayhi salam and threw him into a well, a dried up well that they thought certainly some travelers would eventually find him. And I don't know what they thought would happen to Yusuf alayhi salam when the travelers found him, but they threw him in there. They took his shirt and they slaughtered a goat, possibly, or some other animal, and they soaked the shirt in the blood. This got a little bit dry.
Benjamin was there so he could tell his father.
It's possible that Benjamin was taken off to another area while this happened. It's possible that Benjamin didn't come with them. I actually don't know. But Benjamin was very young and would not have been able to prevent this from happening. This was...
How old was he?
I don't know. But he was still a child or young, but not big enough to overcome his older brothers. And certainly Yusuf alayhi salam was not big enough to overcome his brothers either. Okay? So I'm just going to clean my paintbrush a little bit here. You can add more, you can make your purple go all the way to the end. I just want to blend this a little bit here so that you have a little bit of purple in with this blue, just like I have a little bit of this golden color coming in here. And I'm just trying to keep this a little bit blank here because I don't want it to turn green. But I do really love this color, that purple, so I'm just going to add a little bit. Sure. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this purple up here just to kind of round it out so it really looks like there's maybe clouds or something in the corner there. Okay, so before I finish telling you the story, what we're going to do at this point, mine is still really wet, but I'm going to start on the process of lifting the color. But before I do, actually, while I tell you the rest of the story, I'm going to just take a little bit more blue because I want it just a little bit more purple. So they threw him into the well and they went home to their father, and they came in crying and sobbing, and they said that a wolf had got him and they tried to save him, but they couldn't. He had gone off on his own, or they had just not kept an eye on him, and they presented their father with the bloody shirt. And the sad thing is that Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam just knew, he had this intuition, he just knew that something had happened to his child, and he also knew that his children were lying to him. Okay, so we want to clean our paintbrush really well for this next part. I'm just going to go and do that really quickly here because we've got brown water. We don't want brown water. Okay, so the paintbrushes are clean, and I think I actually got a little drop there. So we're going to take a clean paintbrush, one of these. We want to make sure that it is nice and dry. So let me go ahead and move this over. Yeah. There you go. And here we go. So I'm just going to make sure that it's nice and dry. And we're going to lift up the color for the stars. And in order to make this easier, we're just going to make the stars like little crisscross. Oh, you sweetheart, you need this paintbrush, not the big one. Okay, let's put that one aside. So this one, and in fact, you could even use, you got to make sure that it's completely dry, sweetheart. You got to really pull all of that moisture out. And then, okay, now sweetheart, come look. Just the tip, see that? Just the tip like that, and then you can dry it. Just the tip part, okay? Do you see that? Okay, now, maybe you're,
can you do it?
Let me see if I can on yours. Yeah, just a tip like that. Okay, it's going to take a few tries. Do you see how the color kind of fills back in that space? So it's going to take a few tries, okay? And keep your paintbrush nice and dry during this process. That way you can lift up the color. So, and then if it's not clean enough, then you can clean it with water. But go ahead and try to get 11 stars. And then we can go and clean them. And every once in a while. Do you want me to get you a thinner brush for that?
Yeah.
Okay. But you need to go delicate with it. Let me get you a thin, flat brush. Let me see. Oh yeah, this will work really well. And then make sure you keep it dry. Okay, here you go, baby. The color is going to come back in really easily because my watercolor, my paper is really wet still. So as I pull the color out, it's just filling back in again. So this is a slow process to lift it out. It's a slow process. So Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was in the well. Oh, and as a child, it must have been just devastating and so frightening, especially as night came on. He must have called out to his brothers, and he must have felt so abandoned and cold and weary and hungry and lonely and betrayed and confused. And he could have died in the well, but he didn't die in the well. Allah did save him by sending a caravan, but his life was not going to be easy. His life was going to be challenging for the next several years, many years. He was going to be taken to Egypt. They lived in an area in northern Arabia, in between Egypt and Jerusalem. It's going to take a little while, sweetheart. It is. We're just going to go slowly with this as I tell you the story, okay? If you want, you can get some salt, and we can use salt for each of these stars. If you want, you can go downstairs and get the salt. And
salt that you have?
It might be in the schoolroom, but it's too high for you to get to. So you may go downstairs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at this time, take a break from the story until she returns. 6, and I'll continue to lift the color. And so as the paper dries, like this area right here is a little bit more dry, so I'm going to add a little bit of water there, and that's going to reactivate the paint. Then you can see how we can lift that color out. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do 7 right here. 8, 9. We'll do. That's probably not a good idea. Thank you, sweetheart. Okay, thank you. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you do is your paper is kind of dry, so I'm gonna have you take the water, and it's gonna be still pretty wet, and I'm gonna have you dab onto your paper 11 spots where you want your salt to be, okay? So take the water, take the paintbrush like this, and dab on the 11 spots. Actually, that's working a lot better. We may not need the salt. Okay? You want water. You want to use this paintbrush, sweetheart. And sweetie, it's right there. You're going to want to add, you want to keep it pretty wet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Beautiful. Okay, let me show that. Alright, so that worked out a lot better. Beautiful. Okay. But dab lightly, okay, for the paintbrush. We want to preserve the integrity of the paintbrush. Alright, so I'm going to just remove some of the water here. And now that I've added water, I can lift the color a little bit. That worked really well. Oh wow, these ones worked beautifully. I almost don't want to add anything more to those. In fact, I'm just going to add a little bit more water to these spots down here. So, I love those. I think I just want to leave those. Okay. Let me get this back in place and I will tell you the remainder of the story. So this story is quite long, and so I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but I am going to tell you that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam did not die in the well. He was rescued by a traveling caravan. He was taken to Egypt, where he was sold to a family. He was a slave, and he would be a slave for many, many years. And that's not even going to be the end of his challenges. He will experience far more challenges before he is free and before he is reunited with his siblings and his father. But in the meantime, his father, Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, was heartbroken, not just at losing his son, but also at the trauma of having to know in your heart that your children betrayed you and their sibling in a way that was horrendous and horrific. So it is a very sad beginning to this story. Now, I'm going to give you the salt, and if you'd like, you can take the salt in your hand like this, and you can put a little bit of salt in each of those little areas that you put water in. So I'm going to hand that to you.
The caravan must have come the next day, because then he would die without food.
Yeah, they must have come within 3 days, otherwise he would have died. That is correct. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did save him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had things in store for Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 to signify.
11. I needed 10. Can you?
Sure. So we need 11 for the 11 brothers, but also I'm going to go ahead and add some water here. I'm going to try to lift that out just a little bit more so we can really see the sun. So it was many years before Prophet Yaqub was reunited with his son, and it was a joyous day when he finally was. It was really a turn of events that took Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam from a beloved child to a slave, but before he got there, he was betrayed in a most horrific way, and then sold into slavery, and then the trials that he had to endure were very significant throughout his life before he was reunited with his father and his brothers.
Yeah, now, did he have more story to that?
Yes.
After he was reunited.
I don't know about after he was reunited, but before he was reunited, the time that he spent in Egypt, I believe it was Egypt, the family that he was with,
Wanted to kill him.
they know that his time in jail. Now, he persisted in his ability, or not persisted, but he continued in his ability to be able to interpret dreams. And his ability to interpret dreams is one of the things that was able to free him from jail, prison, because he was sent to.
Really go there.
He was in jail for a really long time, very long time. Okay, so.
Because what did he do that made him go there?
He was seduced by a woman and he refused, and the only safe place for him was actually in jail, because it was a very challenging time for him as a young man. He is the most beautiful human being on this planet, or ever created.
Besides, Prophet Adam alayhi salam.
So Prophet Adam alayhi salam was the most beautiful of Allah's human creations. Prophet Yusuf is, they say, half as beautiful as Prophet Adam alayhi salam. So you can imagine his beauty was just amazing, and yet he was only half as beautiful as Prophet Adam alayhi salam. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'm just going to recap a little bit of what we did, because we worked with the 3 primary colors. We have a little bit of the orange coming in here with the yellow, and just a little bit of the green, but primarily we were able to blend the red with the blue down here for the night sky. And we had a little trouble lifting the color, but as soon as we just added more water, that really did the trick. And I really like the way that the stars kind of sparkle out, and the salt was probably not necessary considering how much lightness we got by adding the water, but I do really like the way that it looks. With the blue, I think we could have added, expanded the blue a little bit more into the middle of the page, and my daughter has quite a bit of blue. I'll show you hers in a minute. The yellow was a little bit hard to lift the yellow and to reveal the sun, and I should have done it the opposite, where you can just kind of paint the whole page with the blue and then lift the blue, and with the yellow kind of circle around where you want the sun. So you have the moon, the sun, you have 11 stars, and this is a watercolor presentation or representation of the dream that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam had. You can find more information about that story down in the description box below. As far as the watercoloring techniques, I think this is suitable for grade 2, but you can see that if you haven't ever done this kind of watercoloring, I would suggest just starting with the one color, and you could just make the entire page just this part of the story, just the moon, and then the next one could be just the sun as a representation of this dream. I think that that would be a far more suitable way to approach this lesson, but we did do all 3 of them together. All right, so let me show my daughter's work. There we go. You can see that the sun here is really prominent. Let me move this. And that the blue, you can see the moon, but the blue on hers really covered a lot more of the page, and then you can see her stars here at the bottom. Once this dries completely, we'll remove the tape, and then for this one, once it dries completely, we'll just be able to lift it up because there's no tape, and you can see all the color right along the edges here. Okay, so if you want more information about this lesson that we did, or the curriculum that we're using, you can find that in the description box below. If you want to see some more of our homeschool lessons, you can tap on the screen right now. If you want to see how our homeschool is progressing on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at Pepper and Pine.